You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Monday, October 28th. It's a victory Monday. Once again, 49ers beat the Cowboys on national television. You love to see it. Another thing we love to see is my Monday co-host joining us, as always on a Monday, Weston P. Smith. Weston, how you doing, man?
Steph, you said it yourself. It is Victory Monday. Those are significantly easier than after a loss. But I told you how I really am. But right now, for the sake of what we're talking about, I'm buzzing. I'm feeling good. I'm not overly optimistic. I'm just feeling good. It's Dallas. There's this new age 49er team hates the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Like the early 2010s hate the Seattle Seahawks. I hate the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know. That is my youth. I don't care what happens in the season. It's this, right? This is circled, and when they're on the calendar, this matters more than anything, especially on national television, because these are two global teams, right? Let alone national teams. Like, it's where you need to handle business. It's that simple. So made waking up a little bit easier this morning.
Probably two of the biggest markets in the NFL,
Absolutely.
right? So it's always nice when the 49ers come out victorious in and all, as they have been in recent history, right? So I was expecting a win, right? Like I think even after how terrible the 49ers looked against the Chiefs, even with the injuries the 49ers faced coming into the week, even with the injuries that the Cowboys were facing, I expected this win. There were some moments in this game, though, Weston, where I was like, I wasn't expecting it to look like this, especially in the first half. It was really a tale of two halves for the 49ers in this game, particularly for Brock Purdy, I must say. And I couldn't even recognize Brock Purdy in the first half. It was that strange. He's had moments this season, right, where, he kind of has been missing uncharacteristic throws that he would normally make, right? We've seen that in spurts here and there. But I hadn't really seen it for a full half. So I was just like, who is this guy? What have you done with my Brock Purdy? So let me know what you think, Weston, about that first half. I'm just curious. And let's not dive into the second half quite yet. I just want to know what your thoughts were watching that first half.
It was painful. I mean, that was the worst half of football I've seen this team play in a long time, if I'm being honest. Right? 3 points up until essentially that final possession. And to your point, I know we've been getting on Brock, and when I say we, I mean everybody from the outside perspective as of late, that he hasn't been playing his best football, which is true. This was just poor. This looked like he didn't belong in he just forgot how to play the game and how to process his reads, etc. And the other thing that stuck out to me was, for the crew that wants to destroy Kyle Shanahan, the play caller. Well, there were dudes running wide open all over that field in the first half, and that was just the quarterback. And I think Brock would tell you exactly that. He just didn't make the plays. The one that Kittle stands out. There's just a bunch that stand out that were just points left on home runs that were dialed up. These people were there. Even when he completed one to Kittle, that could have been Conley all day, on a little bit of wheel route, with nothing but room. And it was bad. Right. And there was nothing. I didn't even care about the 3 points they got going into the extra 3 points they got going into half. There was nothing about that first half that told me the second half was going to be any different than what we saw. It was just bad. It was bad football. But to your point, a tale of two halves.
A tale of two halves. But yeah, there were some weird things. You mentioned the erratic throw to George Kittle, wide open George Kittle. That was on the 3rd and 6, which I think that made it surprising too. The 49ers didn't come away with points after the first Dak Prescott interception. So that loomed large, because then the Cowboys went ahead and scored after that. There were a couple of weird things. You know what I saw, Weston, when the first half was happening is I think everyone was kind of feeling the same way of who is this Brock Purdy, and I saw a lot of people revert to blaming Kyle. They were like, uh, Brock Purdy's lost all his confidence
Yeah.
because of Kyle Shanahan. He's not letting him play freely. And mind you, if you guys have been on social media at all, mostly on X, Twitter, you've seen the conversations being had around audibling or like changing plays at the line. And, Kyle doesn't let him do this. He doesn't let him do that. Even though Kyle has never allowed, well, I wouldn't say allowed, he just has strongly discouraged his quarterbacks from doing that. Kyle has openly said many times, because he has been asked about it many times, he has said the quarterback can change a protection at the line, but they better be right. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
What he has said. And so I think in most cases, quarterbacks are like, no, thank you. Like, I don't even want to risk it. Like, it's okay. I'm good with what's called. So anyway, not to dive into that, but that was a hugely overblown discourse that was happening throughout the week. And then when you see Brock Purdy start this game like he did, everyone just turned to blaming Kyle. It was just very odd. It was very odd. And then, yes, in the second half, we see a different version of Brock Purdy, a Brock Purdy that looked way more familiar to us all. They got back to like short yardage stuff, just getting the ball out quick, whatever gains you can get, just make your next down shorter than the last one.
Absolutely.
I mean, it worked, right? Like that used to be the 49ers way of doing things, right? And I felt like going back to the basics, for one, it helped Brock Purdy get more comfortable and let him get in the rhythm. And it wasn't long after that he was hitting George Kittle on a dot in stride, like we are accustomed to seeing from Brock, right? So I don't know if that was more because of Kyle Shanahan or anything specific that they did and adjusted at halftime, or if it was just Purdy saying, I got to lock in. Like from Brock, what he said after the game, it kind of seemed like he kind of took it upon himself to be like, hey, like I got to do something here and flip that switch. But yeah, what did you think when you saw Brock going back to
old Brock, vintage Brock, right? The legend that is Brock Purdy in his short time. I can't even remember. I don't think the 49ers have ever scored 21 points in a quarter this year. And they did that in the third quarter. Like that, God, that looked good. It looked pretty. I think what was always so cool about Brock Purdy and that gave him success out of the gate is he kind of always just balled with this mentality of like, I've been playing this game my whole life. People have been doubting me my whole life. I know what I'm doing. Just play within the offense. Like process your play the position. Don't overcomplicate it. And that's what the second half, specifically the third quarter, looked like for just go out and let it rip, right? The Brock that we've been seeing for the previous 12 quarters, 14 quarters was the Brock that says, I got to win all of this. It's me, right? If I do well, the team wins. If I do poorly, the team loses. And that's kind of not the way this team is built. That's not necessarily the way he's built. And I don't think that's what's so appealing about Brock Purdy. I think what's appealing about Brock is that you have a really good play caller in Kyle Shanahan. Yes, we can question things, but you can question things about any offense coordinator, head coach, etc. But just play within the offense, right? Like just play within the offense. Make the right decision, the right throw it accurately. It's going to be there. I think we overhype that these guys don't separate. They don't do that. But I think that was just more because it was like Brock was trying to take on more than he needed to at his position, and I commend him for it, right? Like, hey, he wants the ball in the big moment. Love it. But one of the beautiful things about the team that you're on, the system that you're in, is it is system friendly. Like, take advantage of that. Like, you're never going to be asked to do too much. When you're asked to do too much, it's going to be more like, hey, can your legs get us the first down on this? Can you, in a broken pocket, can you step up and take off? Like, take that responsibility on. Everything else, if you get the right protection, you get the right look, the play's going to be there. 8 out of 10 times, somebody's going to be there. And that's the Brock that I saw. More trust in just like his sights, his instincts, and he just went out and played ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think my only critique from Brock Purdy, maybe not the only, but like one of my biggest critiques from Brock so far this season has been, yes, like what you're mentioning, like just trying to do too much, right? And that has made him kind of hesitant, and there are times where it looks like he's second guessing some things. And then before you know it, oh, your window to throw that ball just passed. And now you got to create something out of thin air. And so we saw that sometimes it worked, but it became painfully obvious when it didn't work. Right. And I don't think that's going to work against good teams. I think, look, I appreciate, like you said, I do appreciate that Brock wanted to find and maybe challenge himself, find something else that worked for him and worked for this offense, another level that he can take this team. But I think you got to find a balance, just like in anything. Like too much of something is never a good thing. I would say the same thing for, the 49ers doing too much yak and that being their only thing that they do, right? Like now, look, Brock, it's like we know that you can throw 10 plus yards per attempt. That's cool. We don't need you to do it every down, but just to know that you have that in your back pocket, you could do it when you need. Maybe play action, for example, when the run is working well as well. All those things, right? The balance is important. I think going forward, especially knowing that, after this bye week, you might have Christian McCaffrey back. I think this offense is going to look a lot better, right? But I do have some concerns about if Brock Purdy is going to be that guy and he's not going to have the same type of weaponry that he has right now, which is still pretty good. I know there's a few guys missing, right? I look at it this way. We're gaining more information on Brock right now, like
totally
in different contexts. And I think that's important for some really important decisions that the 49ers are going to be making with Brock this offseason, that a lot of money will be involved in that decision. So I think it's kind of good that they're getting to see all of this. In the first half, I was like, oof, this is definitely not a $60 million quarterback. In the second half, it looked better. So I don't know. You got to, I guess, take it all, just the sample size grows every week. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see this evolvement. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Evolution. Don't encourage my made up words.
Evolvement. That's
evolvement.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
it's
going with it. Listen, you got all the right compounds in there. I think it works.
Evolvement. I think evolution.
Should we Google that right quick just to see?
Evolution.
But
I'm gonna use evolution of Brock.
I stepped up. The best part of your point to me is the being able to see Brock through another lens, meaning like we've seen him when things are going really well. We've seen him things are going poorly. Now we're seeing things when they muddle a little bit. And that's usually just been an overall game. It seems like he always has either a really good game or a mediocre game. This was like started really, really poor and ended pretty darn strong, right? Like I won't say great. Like there's still some things that need to be worked out. But when you're going to make the market investment for what might be your long-term quarterback, I feel like you're more confident in stroking that check when you're able to see them in every single scenario. When the chips are up, when the chips are down, everything along that. You've now seen them in multiple NFC championship games, in a Super Bowl. Now I think you have the right tape to make the decision. We know what decision they're going to make. These guys don't grow on trees, right? And you hit a home run, I think he's going to have to play pretty poorly down the stretch for them to go in a different direction. Not that I want to see that, but the other point you made was all of these things. I just like to think that second half, outside of the last 8.5 minutes, was good momentum going into the bye week, getting your legs underneath you. Week 9 bye week's late, right? And, some teams start week 3. So you've played more than half of your schedule before your bye week. Do you get Christian McCaffrey back? I'm still not sold on that, but do you? And things might look better. We were never concerned about the offense coming into the season until the injuries and the holdouts and those things. We just penciled them in to be a 30-point per game offense. The defense we always knew was going to have the shortcomings. Well, what's the best? I would argue the defense has actually exceeded my expectations, not looking at the statistics of whatever it is, 23, 24, points per game. But what's going to help that defense is a stronger offense that is sustaining drives, who is running the football, who is scoring inside the red zone, who doesn't have stupid penalties that call back these big plays a la the Debo, right? Those sort of things change games, right? Like when you wipe those points off, that change games. But if you can get into that flow and you get your guys back and you can, instead of going 3 and out, even if you chew up 2.5, 3.5 minutes of clock before you exchange, like you buy your defense time, you give them a rest, and most importantly, you keep their offense off the field. Like I think those things will go a long way, which is giving me some optimism that I didn't carry as strongly going into the second half. And you and I both know this is about getting hot at the right time and being the best team going into the playoffs, not the best team. Very rarely does the best team in the regular season win the Super Bowl. Very rare that happens.
True. I mean, I think we know how good the Chiefs are as a team. I think we know, obviously, they still haven't lost a game this season. But when you think about the Chiefs last season, like they looked mid much of the season, but they're a team that locks in when they need to, and it works for them. The 49ers,
they can't believe they're like 7-0, right? Like this is not real. We're not even playing football. Like we're just showing up to the games, and this is actually happening.
Which is scary because they can sleepwalk in some of these games and still be 7-0. And by the way, they just traded for Josh Uche from the Patriots for a 6th-round pick, a 2026 6th-round pick. Are you kidding me? Is that it?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Is that it?
I honestly think these deals only get made for the Chiefs, right? Like, and Brett Veach. I feel like if John Lynch called, they'd be like, dude, that's a 2025 third. Oh, Brett Veach, 2026. Like, what does he have on people in this league? Like, I don't understand. Yeah. I mean, he's the best in the business, and it's a saying for a reason. But the rich get richer. It's just the way it is, and you got to think about it from a mid-season free agent perspective. Yes, the team's calling, but the players always talk to, and that like I bet Josh Uche is sitting there like, get this done, right? Like to his agent, like do whatever you need to. I get a chance to go play in like football lore, potentially win a Super Bowl, like whatever it is, like that plays in their favor. You know what I mean? If it was like the Carolina Panthers knocking on New England's door, I bet he wouldn't be so inclined to help the team make that move,
Yeah, who knows? I mean, obviously one option for the 49ers off the table. I do think they'll be interested in a pass rusher at the trade deadline, preferably like this week, right? Because then you can get that player
get a weekend
in the building, get a little extra week or so to get up to speed with, your schemes. So hopefully
if they're serious about competing, they better be serious about improving the defensive line, specifically the pass rush. Yeah. Otherwise, I can't take their efforts seriously. And I get it. Like it's hard to go find those guys at this point in the season. They've had some success with it in the past, adding some people to the fire. But if you want to prove to us that you are serious, I need like verification that you are picking up the phones and calling on players and getting them here, because the defensive line just needs reinforcements. It needs help, right? It needs to improve, but it also just needs bodies to sustain the second half of the season and a potential playoff run.
Yeah, especially with all the injuries happening at multiple positions for the 49ers right now. I think that definitely amplifies the need for some depth at the very least. Now, just to underscore and end the conversation of the 49ers going back to basics, there were a few tweets that I saw that had some interesting stats that I want to share with you guys now. So Brock Purdy, when blitzed against Kansas City, 5 of 9, 66 yards, an interception. Against Dallas, 8 of 12, 110 yards, 1 touchdown. I understand. Kansas City, Chiefs, completely different defenses. One's good, one's not. But still, I think we needed to see that. We needed to see that from Brock, just being able to handle the blitz, throwing hot again. And then this stat right here, Brock Purdy's average depth of target last night in the first half was 10.1 yards. That's when he was struggling. In the second half, 3.8 yards. Things started moving again. And once you start moving, and like I said, once you get in that rhythm, it just all feels a little bit easier. And you really get those drives going and can sustain those drives. So I do think that helped ultimately against the blitz as well. And then the 49ers going back to their bread and butter yards after the catch. They had 141 yards after the catch last night against the Cowboys as a season high. Of course, the 49ers were the lowest in yards after the catch this season. Yesterday, yards after the catch per reception was 7.8, also a career high. A season high for the team. So yeah, I mean, I'm not mad at it. Again, I think some games you want to do that. Other games, maybe you want to mix of both. Other games, maybe you want to dice a defense up, completely through the air. That's fine. But yeah, I like that we can go back to this because, like I said, it helps with the comfort level of Brock. He looked way more comfortable in the second half.
Totally.
And I think it helps the rest of the team too. Just the rest of the offense just really get going. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Football's a funny game. It's a most competitive sports. There has to be confidence there. And you see it when Brock, when he's completing passes and when they're moving the ball, even the way he runs, he's less reluctant to run. He's just I'm going to go do it, to keep the momentum building.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned what the discourse was all week leading into this game about adjustments and audibles and control. We can have a whole show on this, but there's 4 quarterbacks in our lifetime that have ever been given the permission to go up and just outright pick which play from the playbook that they want to run. We could go whatever. The biggest thing that was happening, to your point, was the audible that's within a play. There are adjustments within every single play that is called based on alignments and sights and things of that nature. And the most common one is the hot route. If your guy comes, you are hot. There is instructions on where you should wind up if you're hot. And Brock saw those versus continuing the play. That doesn't mean the receivers weren't doing this the entire time because that's unspoken, right? That's right. Quarterback, you should see that this guy's coming. I'm replacing him, right? I'm going to just 6-yard hook over replacing the defensive end or the outside linebacker, etc. It's unspoken. Doesn't mean they weren't doing it. Just meant Brock wasn't looking at that, right? I think he was still just going through the natural progression. And that's where they've been so good over the years is with the yak is because it was literally they were embarrassing defenses by just replacing the defender that was coming off the hot read. And they would just take it and house it. That's what your skill set is. And that's what you saw especially in the third quarter. And that was beautiful. And to me, that means if you keep that Brock is playing with confidence and he's not the simplest thing in any sport. If it's an offense versus defense is take what the defense gives you.
Yep.
Period.
Exactly.
Just take what they give you.
Yeah,
it's really a simple game when all's said and done. It's quite complex, but it really is a simple concept.
Yeah, and so that's why I say them going back to basics, I think, is a good thing for Brock. Probably a good thing going forward as well. I hope they stick with this. The one gripe I have with this offense so far, it's been inconsistent, right? So hopefully they carry whatever momentum they had in this game against Dallas into week 10 after the bye week, right? The bye week definitely should help the 49ers, get some of these things in order, because like there's still some things to clean up. Everyone knows it, so hopefully that's something that's addressed during the bye week. I don't see why not. And on top of that, they have a lot of injuries to attend to during this bye week as well. 49ers definitely in need of this bye. So yeah, a couple injuries that took place in yesterday's game. You know, Jordan Mason, who had been dealing with a shoulder injury, he suffered 2 weeks ago, I believe. He re-aggravated that shoulder injury. He did not return to the game yesterday, although Kyle Shanahan said he could have returned if they needed him. That I assume that means if we were down to like our last running back, it was him, he could have gone back out there. They decided to keep him out. He'll be evaluated after the bye week. So hopefully that rest does him well. Chris Conley, he has an ankle sprain. He's week to week. Deebo Samuel exited this game and did not return late in the game. He's dealing with the ribs and oblique injury. I want to say he's dealt with that before in the past too. And that is something that could get re-aggravated as well. So like I said, this rest is going to be important for an injury like that. He'll be reevaluated after the bye week as well. Renardo Green exited this game late as well. People thought, oh, did he get benched? Because it was after the CeeDee Lamb.
Because certain people say things like that, and that's
So it was an ankle sprain for Renardo Green. I think the 49ers still feel really good about Green and where he's at right now in his development. So he's day-to-day, right? Yep. Dee Winters, concussion. He didn't return. He's in concussion protocol. I would have to imagine, I don't speculate too much about injuries, but usually concussion is like at least a week, right? So with the bye week, Dee Winters should be back after that. Juwan Jennings should be back after the bye week as well with this hip injury. That is good news. And
fantastic news.
We're all wondering about Christian McCaffrey, right? Christian McCaffrey, his practice window will open next Monday. And then with that week of practice, they're going to see how he responds. They're also going to be doing some simulated practices for him this week and see how that goes. So things are ramping up for Christian McCaffrey. And so far, it's been going well. He hasn't had any setbacks. So here's to hoping that McCaffrey is ready in week 10 after the bye week and the 49ers can go on a little run. I'd feel a lot better about the chances of that with McCaffrey on this offense. And for Dre Greenlaw, who we're also patiently waiting on, Kyle Shanahan said he'll be week to week after the bye. So, it seems like return is near for some key pieces here.
I really hope so. To me, if I'm being real honest, this is going to sound crazy because I'm discounting the reigning offensive player of the year. I think Dre Greenlaw is the one that matters the most. And I only say that because there's been production. It's looked different, and it's traditionally on the ground. It's not necessarily so much through the air like we've seen with Christian McCaffrey being able to do everything. But the backs have been productive. The running game, for all intents and purposes, has still been there. He's just a different element. To me, just Greenlaw is the tone setter. Like I know Fred is like all pro Fred, but like the two of them lined up, I mean, they're an all-time duo, right? Like we sit here as fans and compare them to Bowman and Willis, right? And those guys were bananas together, like let alone these, to me, Dre's the big one. I'm an openly optimistic individual about like the outcome for this team. There's something that's still like nagging me about the Christian McCaffrey thing. So I am not as confident his return is pending. But Juwan, all these other guys, they'll be back, right? Nothing on this looks like that they won't, unless it's a setback in the next 2 weeks. But Juwan's going to be the big one too. Another tone setter, blocking. Just great for these rooks that are all of a sudden getting this burn. He's not too far removed of that. And look how he's climbed the ladder as a 7th round pick to get to where he is, just getting paid. Like he's important. There's the certain attitude and swagger that he carries. Those are the pieces to me that are the Christian McCaffrey is very important. I want to take a back step here. Someone's going to be like, this idiot doesn't think Christian McCaffrey is important to what they have doing. He does. I'm just saying, based on this team right now, Dre Greenlaw fills the biggest hole for me, right? Like on this return. And to return, 10 months after tearing your Achilles on the biggest stage in the world? Like, that's crazy that he'd be back that fast. So I'm hopeful. But yeah, I think the bye week's coming at the perfect time to gear them up where they're at 500 ball. Nobody's really pulled away in the NFC just yet. I think some of the ones that are up there are still pretending a little bit. It's there. It's there for the taking, at least in your own division and your own conference.
Yeah, just looking at the NFC West standings right now, you have 3 teams who are 4-4. Cardinals, 49ers, Seahawks. It's a tight race between those teams. You can call it the NFC mid, I guess.
Yeah, like super mid.
Yeah, then the Rams are 3 and 4, but the Rams, I think, are also a team that if any of those teams above slip, the Rams are poised to make some moves too, because they got Puka and Kupp back, and they still have the best quarterback in the NFC in Matthew Stafford. So yeah, I think the 49ers can't wait to have their VIC back. Very important, Christian. And
very important, Christian.
And their VID, very important, Dre. They're they're super important to this team. I think we've seen as much. I think you could say it's almost admirable that the 49ers have stayed afloat without those guys, just because they are so important to their respective units. But yeah, definitely after this bye week, we'll get a better idea of what this team is going to be this season. Like, that's weird, right? Like, we just finished week 8 and we don't know what this team is. Like, I'm having a hard time knowing if this team is a contender or pretender still. Like, I don't know. And I don't know if I can truly make a fair assessment of that until this team gets Christian McCaffrey back. And we know he's coming back. So, like, that could change everything, right? So right now, I'm cautiously optimistic, but that optimism comes solely from Christian McCaffrey and Dre Greenlaw making their returns. Totally. So that's huge.
Yeah, I agree. If both of those guys, if this was a different story and they were both out the rest of the season, I feel confident that they could maybe find themselves to the show, but it could be just as quick of an exit as it was a rival to get to the playoffs. So we'll see. The Tampa game is going to be telling coming out of the bye. That's going to be really important. You know, you can't start slow anymore. You got to go in and start smacking people around. Like it's that simple. And what better way to do it coming off 2 weeks rest? That's when you're supposed to be your freshest. That's when you're supposed to understand who you are as a team and what your identity is. Go lay it out on them. Like, that simple. You know, that's your competition in your conference. That game's important.
Definitely needed. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, Weston, should we talk about this week 8 one more time to give some nominees for 49K Player of the Week? Because I do think we'll have more than last week, right?
Yes. Not many, if I'm being really honest. Okay, like, it was, all right. I think that's how the 49ers win. A bunch of just solid, consistent performances from a lot of players, not necessarily like there might only be 1 or 2 peak performances. That's their winning formula. They tend to be a balanced team. And I think, you know, outside of almost collapsing in the fourth quarter, that's kind of what it looked like in the second half for them yesterday.
It sure did. Well, Weston, I'm gonna let you go first.
Ooh.
I'm feeling generous. So who do you got? Who you got for us?
I didn't expect that. I was literally. I would have dressed differently.
It's a coin toss, you know.
Yeah. I know. But you've been, it's your show. You've been taking the lead, and I thought you'd want this one, considering we were just coming off a national holiday, otherwise known as National Tight Ends Day. How does it not go to George Kittle? 6 catches, 128 yards, still doing all the things that he does in the run game, etc. But definitely the tone setter for the offense. Like, it was big plays, big times. Some physical runs. You mentioned the dot to Kittle in the second half that went deep down the sideline, finding the end zone. But on National Tight End Day, and this is what the offense is going to look like. It's going to have to run the football well. It's going to have to be gimmicky with Deebo Samuel, finding unique ways to get the ball in his hand, and your other wide receivers, like we saw with Ricky Pearsall, et cetera. And Kittle's going to have to be steady Eddie. Like, he's going to have to partake in the passing game even more, which he's fine with. Trust me. He loves it, but that's a glimpse of what this offense needs to look like go forward. And like I said, 6 for 128, averaging 21 yards a catch. That's crazy on 7 targets and the 1 touchdown. Happy National Tight Ends Day, George Kittle. You were the cream of the crop for the tight ends, who, by the way, a lot of them had really big games yesterday.
Yeah,
too.
No, it's awesome. It was great for the brand, right?
Totally.
For George and for all the tight ends. In the very first, the game in which National Tight End Day was birthed, George Kittle said, tight ends across the league are scoring touchdowns, and they sure did yesterday, including George Kittle.
Mm-hmm.
He had a touchdown in this one, caught 6 of his 7 targets, 128 yards. I mean, he has been Mr. Consistent. He has 6 touchdowns on the season. I've mentioned it, the 49ers clearly trying to get him involved in the red zone, and it has paid off big time. And 73 of his 128 yards came after the catch. So it was a vintage George performance for sure for this team. He also had an average of 5 yards per separation. 5 yards of separation per target. Shout out to KP for that stat.
I don't even know how they measure this. These guys impress the
I
hell out of me.
I'm just here to take the stats and relay them back. I was like, that sounds good. That fits my narrative. And
insert there, analytics.
Yeah, exactly. Copy paste.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it fit the narrative of this week. George Kittle absolutely being deserving of 49K Player of the Week nomination. I think if there's anyone who can help, I think Brock get out of any kind of slump he's in, it's Kittle and help this offense get out of, we've been talking about it, the red zone slumps that they've had. It's him. So yeah, he deserved a holiday.
Totally. I can't believe that he's great. I don't think 49er fans are I shouldn't say that. We all are. We are super appreciative that George Kittle plays for our team, and not just for the skill set that he brings, but for the personality he brings.
Oh, yeah.
We've been spoiled with tight end play for as long as I've been a fan.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That just reminded me. Another stat I saw that fits my narrative, right? So George Kittle this season, he's first in touchdowns among tight ends, first in yards per route run among tight ends. PFF grade, he's first. Receiving yards, he's second in yards per reception among all tight ends. He's doing this at 31. We had concerns about Kittle and injuries and like his hard playing style catching up to him. And I think in the back of our minds, we always have that concern about players who play hard like they do. But man, like, dude is still going. He's still looking great. I think it's absolutely looking like a good investment for the 49ers, even in year 8 of, his tenure in San Francisco. So yeah, I love Kittle, man. Definitely love that energy. The greatest.
He's one of the guys that you're just always going to look back on fondly. Like I look back on a Roger Craig or a Ronnie Lott, like not the obvious is the Montanas and Rice and Young. Those are guys that are in folklore, right? But like the next tier down of those players, George is absolutely going to be one of those guys. And he's cementing himself in history with receptions and things of that nature where you can't take him off the board. And he's still got some years to go. And on top of it, when I watch George Kittle, I remember why I love football. And I love football because I just loved it when it was the game that we played in our backyard with like no rules. And, we had end zones, but it was basically kill the man with the ball. It was fun, right? It was fun. And as fortunate as he is to make the money that he does, I don't think he's lost his edge in terms of having fun. And that's awesome.
I think so too. Keeps
right.
it light.
We got more people to get to. Who you got up?
Oh, we definitely do. It reminded me because you did mention about, the 49ers need to have success running the football, or whatever you said. You said something about
whatever you're rambling on about over there.
Whatever you were yapping about. But it reminded me about a certain performance yesterday that I was like, oh, yeah, I wanted them to nominate a certain running back, Isaac Guerendo.
Oh, yeah.
Isaac Guerendo, I mean, once again, when called upon, when Jordan Mason went out, he did better this time than he did last time, in my opinion. Totally. He averaged 4.3 yards after contact alone. Altogether, 6.1 yards per carry in this game. I believe he had, let's see here, he had like 80-something rushing yards in this. Should have been a little more prepared. 85 rushing yards, a touchdown. He could have had another one as well. Another heads-up play. Again, poor guy. Like, this guy is just giving up, sacrificing touchdowns
dollars
for the sake of the team, right? I hope his agent is marking. Yes, he didn't have this many touchdowns, but he actually could have had this many because of the ones he slid for. Exactly. I mean, nice heads up play once again. He just looked like an old 31 that we once knew, Raheem Mostert, and the speed that he had, right? And this was the speed that had been advertised to us about Isaac Guerendo since he was drafted by the 49ers. I don't know if we had seen it to this extent quite yet, so it was nice to see that. And I think every week he's been improving. I know the first few times he went out there, his vision, was one thing that people were critiquing. And man, if he just had the vision, if he just waited for his block there, he could have probably taken that for a bigger gain. Well, now you're seeing him follow those blocks. You're seeing the good vision. You've seen him get better with each and every week. His confidence is growing. And yeah, I'm excited to see him going forward because, yes, we know Christian McCaffrey is going to be part of this team, probably sometime after the bye week. I still want to see Jordan Mason. I still want to see Isaac Guerendo. They all bring something different and unique to this team. And he had 3 10-plus yard carries and 7 carries where he reached at least 15 miles an hour. That was a league high for week 8. Another stat from KP. So thank you for that.
Keep killing it.
He's killing it. But yeah, I mean, Guerendo doing what he needed to do.
Yeah. I think the craziest thing is verbatim. You almost took the words right out of my mouth about the speed, the advertised speed. I've only seen it on that kickoff, right? That was done, that kickoff return, I feel like was the last time I saw it. You saw a little bit in the big run against Seattle, iced the game, but he still got hawked, and maybe he was slowing down, maybe he wasn't, but I felt this was I thought I was being falsely advertised to around a 4.3 speed guy because I hadn't seen it. And I felt that way about Elijah Mitchell because they used to talk about Elijah Mitchell being a high 4.3, low 4.4 guy. And you've never seen that speed from him. I've never seen him hit a home run and always get caught. What was the thing? One thing about Raheem Mostert, never got caught, right? He got out in the open. He was ghost town. Breida, ghost, right? Guerendo just didn't look it. Last night he looked it. Last night he was running outside. Last night he was running between the tackles. Last night he was following his blockers. A much more awareness where the lanes were, where they weren't. And I agree with you, Steph. I'm excited. I'm like, if he comes back, if McCaffrey comes back, I think I want to see more of Guerendo than I do Mason right now, especially early on in the game because of the home run threat. He's proven to me that if he can get past the second level, he's going to make a DB miss and he could house call it, I don't know. I don't feel the same way about Mason. I don't even feel the same way about McCaffrey. McCaffrey gets caught a lot too, it's hard being faster than DBs that run 4.2s, 4.3s like clockwork. But yeah, I take it with a grain of salt because it's the Dallas Cowboys defense. And obviously they're void of talent right now because the talent they do have didn't even suit up for this game outside of 1 or 2 players. But it has looked not just better, significantly better. And this just goes to what we've been talking about for years with Kosh. Play the rookies. Play the rookies. You want to know how they get better? They get better with time on the field. Play the rookies, And example 1, and we'll have 5 more that we'll probably talk about, right? Of examples of look what happens when these guys are out on the field consistently.
Yeah, we're seeing a bit of a rookie renaissance for the
Sure
49ers. I came up with that, by the way. Rookie renaissance.
Coined
no
now.
no one has ever used that phrase in the history of the sport or any sport. Rookie renaissance. So,
We know what Steph was doing today. Googling that term.
It's exciting. It's
Yep.
exciting to see these draft picks flourish this season. I don't care what the circumstances have been as to why they're getting their opportunity. Most of it's been because of injury. Don't care. It's working, and I hope Kyle really sees that and is more comfortable with giving the rookies more playing time going forward. But all right, Weston, who's your next nominee?
I told you we were going to touch on this subject, and I tweeted it last night and specifically gave you the heads up, but it's Diamador Lenoir. Week after week after week, just big play after big play after big play. Little special shout out because you actually liked one of my tweets today. So super excited about that.
Nice.
I just puff my chest a little bit. That's as good as it gets for me as a like tweet. That being said, right now, this moment that we're talking about, he's the best defensive player on the football field, above Fred Warner right now, the level that he is playing at for a secondary that we were all worried about, has a lot of youth. He inside, outside. I know the stats yesterday from a PFF perspective in terms of targets and yards aren't going to look that great. Obviously, they were trying to drag him all over the field when they can. You had some D-backs miscommunicating and kind of colliding with one another every once in a while on certain plays. And he's certainly following CeeDee Lamb, who's a top 5 receiver, especially if they put CD everywhere. So he found time there. But just the knack for the big play in the big moment. I would say this about Fred Warner, just has that knack, that punch out happens or that interception happens at the right time. Demo as well, that pick on the Cowboys' first possession of the second half, that changed the game. Yes, we went down and scored on our opening possession, but for them to get the ball right back with a chance to answer and you take it right away, and that's a hell of a play by him, that interception with body turned, eyes in the backfield, doing everything. He is exceptional, and I will put my words out there right now that Steph, when I tweeted, I said he is a top 3 corner in the league, and not enough people are talking about it. The only people that I might grade a little bit higher, other 2 young guys, is Surtain and Sauce. But other than that, Diamador Lenoir is playing big-time football. He's going to get a big-time bag in the offseason, and he deserves it. If I had to ask you, who was the highest graded run defender for the 49ers last night, who would you guess? Trick question. You should guess Diamador Lenoir.
Yeah, I know. I would have guessed maybe Jair Brown, but Lenoir has been a good run defender.
Does everything. He's just in the mix.
Dude, he's playing himself to a big bag.
Yeah,
and I just hope that bag comes from the 49ers because I would hate to see Lenoir go.
No.
He looks like an all-pro this season. And I think we knew, right? If you look at the career arc for Lenoir, you kind of just felt like this season was going to be big for him. He was inching towards that last season, didn't get the love he deserved, right? He felt certainly like he should have been an all-pro that season. I knew he was going to be better this year and definitely looking like it. He bet on himself too, and that's looking to be paying off for him. He had 3 stops last night. Yeah, he was targeted 12 times, which seems kind of crazy to me. Only allowed a 43.4 passer rating in his coverage. And that did include the acrobatic interception, heads up play from him. It's just par for the course at this point with Lenoir and what he's been doing this season so far. I mean, target him at your own risk, to be honest. That. And let's just say this, actually, it was a fine thrown ball from Dak. I mean, it was just better coverage from Lenoir.
Players make plays. The dude's a player. You know what I mean? It's that simple. He's so good.
Absolutely is a player. All right. I'm going to give – how many nominees you got left, Weston?
Yeah, 1 or 2. No, I got one more, and then I'll give some flowers.
Okay. Yeah, I got a couple flowers to give as well. All right, I'm just gonna go with it. I'm gonna say Nick Bosa, right? And for what he did on the field, or during the game, I should say. There are other things he did on the field, but during the game, his 6 pressures led the team. In fact, he now leads the entire league in pressures with 46. Last night, he also had 3 tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss, 3 quarterback hits, including the one that came on Jair Brown's interception early in the game. What was I saying last week, Weston? That yes, maybe the sack production isn't always there for Nick Bosa, but his pressures, which are up really high, his pressures are one of the more impactful things about his game because it helps lead to errant throws, interceptions, other, incompletion, you know where I'm going, right?
Yep.
So yeah, he's been huge as of late. He was huge last night as well. So again, for what he did in those 60 minutes of play.
Yeah, it's evident no matter what. And it has been really much more this year than last year, the impact that he's had, even if the statistics aren't the quote unquote sexiest, right? With the ones that they get paid for to get home. But you pointed out to the Jair Brown interception. That's because Dak couldn't step up, right? He couldn't get everything that he wanted on that throw. He couldn't even follow through fully. So that becomes an errant throw that basically looks like a lazy pop fly to center field that Jair Brown just has, that's my World Series is tonight, right? So there's my baseball reference. But I'm settled in underneath it, but he's consistently gets home. I am going to be a little critical of Nick Bosa right now, and it has nothing to do with the antics after the fact. I don't engage in those conversations because if I've realized anything, you can't speak politics or religion with anyone and have it be a reasonable conversation. So we'll leave that out of it. But with Bosa, to me, I feel like he explodes so quickly up the field that he's already past the quarterback's 7th step. And more often than not, that's actually taking him out of the play, right? And they're filling that gap, maybe screening to that side, maybe stepping up to that side. So it's hard, right? This is a catch-22. How do you tell the league's, arguably the league's best pass rusher in terms of creating pressure to stop doing what he does so well? But good offenses are going to expose that. Especially, this is why we struggle with mobile quarterbacks, right? Because they all rush to a point, and the quarterback's like, "Oh, I'll just fill and replace." But other than that, I mean, the dude's all world. He's as good as it gets at the position. In the prime of his career, last night another prime example. But if I was being critical, I would say that I seemingly have noticed it more this year. Not only have I noticed it more this year, I noticed more people talking about it this year. So it's clearly a little bit more evident to everybody else. And if we're talking about it, offensive coordinators are talking about it as well.
True. Yeah, that's a good point. I have noticed that. I think that's why we've seen more of the spin move, because when he does get too far, that's when he kind of spins back. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it seems like he has a counter for that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Touche then, Nick Bosa. Touche.
It works, right? It works. But yeah, so those are the nominees that I have. Weston, you have another?
No, I'll stay there. I'll stay with those nominees, and then I'll go flowers.
All right, here we go. So then on the screen, you guys have our nominees for 49K Player of the Week. We kept it short and sweet, even in a win.
A W, yeah.
Four guys, but I think it's because we're reaching an hour here. We could have probably squeezed in a couple. So we got George Kittle, Isaac Guerrero, Diamador Lenore, and Nick Bosa. Everyone in the comments, in the live chat, let us know who you would want to see as 49K Player of the Week after this performance against the Cowboys in Week 8. In the meantime, me and Weston are going to give some flowers. So who do you got for us this time, Weston?
Oh, I'm torn here, but I'm going to go with Malik Mustafa again. Just, it's amazing the difference a week and a difference 2 weeks can make for a rookie. I don't think people realize that playing safety as a rookie is really difficult in the NFL. Like these, I mean, all positions in the NFL are difficult for sure, but playing the safety, it's a huge adjustment because you're not more skilled and faster than the guys like you were in college, right? Like all of these guys are elite, and there's a lot of field, a lot of responsibility. And I feel like the more time he's getting, Mustafa is he's really stepping up to it. Just the pass breakup in the end zone, right on Ferguson on the tight end, whatever it was. I mean, that was a double tap, right? That was double rip, like through that and then going down. Still didn't like. For a rookie to do that shows me he's growing, right? Like normally they're just trying to get their arms around the guy and just like fall on the ground and flail and hope that the guy drops it when he makes contact with the ground. But to continue to fight, to continue to do those things, he fills the gap very, very well. He tackles very soundly. I mean, I really don't remember a better form tackler that I have seen in this short window from him than like Bob Sanders do you remember Bob Sanders from the Colts? He used to call him the eraser. This dude, look film on Bob Sanders. This dude was an animal, but built the same way, just missiles. But they understand the fundamentals of the game. And I just think when you talk about the difficulty and the nuances of the positions, the more burn he gets, the more he's going to start playing even at a faster speed because it's going to be come second nature to him. So really, really impressed with his 2 starts so far, and I thought that continued yesterday in different variations. He didn't make big hits, the jaw-dropping ones in the backfield, but he played the game really, really sound, and he wasn't a liability back there, which is really what you're hoping for out of your rookie safety.
Right. Like, I think we're okay with our safeties not even being mentioned, right?
Totally.
Because, if they are being mentioned most of the time,
good.
like, not good. So this was a game where he kind of blended into the background aside from, as you mentioned, the pass breakup in the end zone. And that's huge. That's against a tight end. And Ferguson has been pretty good this year. You kept him from having his national tight end moment, right? Yeah. So, that was a great heads up play. I saw someone say earlier today that, they feel like Malik Mustafa is one of the best coverage safeties that the 49ers have had in a long time, and I have to agree with that so far, right? Like he's been good, and that's awesome because he covers well, and he also plays in the box well. He runs downhill fast. He can help in the run game. Everything he does, I think, is trending in the right direction. He appears to be getting better each and every week as well. #rookie renaissance. My honorable
down, so it never goes away.
KJ in the comments, are you voting for Kittle? Is that a vote for Kittle? You mentioned him. Let me know. Anyway, guys, keep voting in the comments. I'm going to give an honorable mention here. I'm going to go with Sammy O. Sammy O. So he had 5 pressures resulting in a sack, 2 quarterback hits, and 2 hurries. He also had a stop, and that's on 22 pass rushing snaps. So he is very efficient in this one. He has been efficient when he's gotten, those snaps. And actually 3 of his 5 pressures came while lining up inside. So he's also given the 49ers versatility to work with. And that's big right now. We talk about the injuries that the 49ers are dealing with. And so Sam-O has been big for them as of late. So, I got to give him some flowers for that.
He's like, this is going to sound terrible. I don't even know if I want to make this comparison, but he's like finding a bunch of dollar bills in your couch cushion, right? Like, I mean, he was he was a body, right? He has not had a ton of production in limited time over the years. He just feels like another guy who has benefited from being in this environment. I hate calling it I don't want to call him a Kasuric reclamation project because I don't think he was in the pits of despair like Arden Key once was and had a rejuvenation, but somebody who has maybe benefited from his coaching style and things of that nature. So he's found money. Like he's found money that you had on your practice squad. You get him on your 53, and he's not going away. Barring injury, like we talked about, they need depth, they need pressure, they need consistency at the defensive line, and he's part of that equation. And it's not just this week. It's been really every week that he's gotten action. He's been highly productive in his limited reps. I would expect and I would hope that he gets more and more burn down the line.
Yep.
And another one that's only going to benefit from time on the field. Only going to benefit. It's not going to be a negative. Got to get this guy more reps. I'd love to see Leonard Floyd a little bit more situational than he is what it is. But that's about depth right now. And that's about not a lack of options. But Samuel's been playing great. He is a renaissance in himself, just not quite #rookie renaissance.
Yeah, and I think it's notable too because the Cowboys actually do have a pretty good offensive line. So
absolutely,
that into consideration. I
can't run the ball for shit, but they got a pretty good.
Well, that doesn't have to do with their offensive line.
Nothing to do.
But
that's Zeke Elliott and Dalvin Cook.
Another conversation. All right, you got any other honorable mentions?
I don't want to belabor it because we're going to talk more about him, but Renardo Green just continues to play well. Just continues to play really well as a rookie. I know statistically he gave up the one touchdown to CD Lamb, but he was literally collided with this is what happens when rookies are in the back, right? Not knowing space and separation. Just a blown coverage is all it was, but he's stuck on like glue. He's there, he's aggressive, he's willing, and he's able. And we talked about it when we drafted him. I was like, everybody, y'all gonna love this guy. He plays a physical brand of football. He fits right in with what they're trying to accomplish.
I definitely agree. That's a good one. I want to give some flowers to Jair Brown because look, it hasn't been the season that I was expecting for Jair Brown, right? I was expecting him to take a second-year leap. Hasn't really happened, but his game yesterday against the Cowboys, his best game of the season, like unquestioned, right? He only allowed 5 yards in his coverage and a passer rating of 30.6. So yeah, I mean, I have to give it up to him. That was a pretty good performance.
Absolutely. I like you have been underwhelmed with his performance this year, especially to me how well he played as a rookie. But yeah, he to your point, we didn't talk much about him. You didn't hear as much of his name during the game, which is a good thing for your safeties. And he was very consistent yesterday. I hope he can start to stack some games like in the manner in which Mustafa is, because then all of a sudden you're not worried about if Hufanga is coming back, which I don't think they should be worried about anyway. Like, just write that off. He's going to play for another team next year. But that being said, that's the level of confidence you want to have from these two, because they are the future. They are the Tart Ward combo that you're going to see back there for the next at least 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, I think so too. So yeah, hopefully he could stack his days. My dad wants to give some flowers to Pearsall. I think that's a good one too.
Yes, sir.
Definitely love to see the performance from Pearsall. Love to see him get that carry out of the backfield. I think that was he had a second gear. He had a second gear there that I didn't even know he had. So it was encouraging, and I like the involvement again. On need, right? Juwan Jennings wasn't there when Debo went out too. It just increased his role a little bit more. Conley, right? But I think this is good for him.
I felt like he was on the field a lot. I want to say he had like the first catch of the game.
He did. I think he did.
Yeah.
Pretty sure he did. Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can look up this.
And you see this package. I don't know if you've noticed this, but it's been like the last 2 games where you see Conley, Cowing, Pearsall, that's the package. Like, Debo's not even on the field, and like you're like, what is going on here? But again, when a healthier Debo, Jennings back, like, you're not going to have that package. But I like it because when you go that route, you have to. You're not this plays for Ricky, this plays for Jacob, right? Like this, no. Get open, and that's who the ball's going to go to. Not like I gotta force it to Debo. I gotta force it. Like, you're not worried about the mouths you got to feed. You just go play ball. And I think Brock will thrive in that. I really do. Just go play ball.
Yeah, Pearsall had 59% of the snaps yesterday, so 40 out of 68. Oh, not bad, right? I mean, I think he's going to continue to get more involvement.
I hope so
as he goes on here. All right, like I said, we're over an hour here. So, Weston, who is your 49K player of the week this week?
It's George Kittle, National Tight Ends Day. I got to give it to him.
It is George Kittle for me too. That is the easiest decision of my life because, yeah, I mean, and it's National Tight End Day. We have to give it to him. So yes, and then it was definitely deserving. We're not just giving it to him just because, right? He had the performance to back it up. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in once again on a Victory Monday. Hopefully we could get 2 consecutive Victory Mondays, Weston. Next Monday we won't be doing a show because of the bye week, but following week after that, week 10, hopefully after that game we're talking about another Victory Monday.
Hope it's Victory Mondays through February, baby. If we're gonna let's just roll it.
Let's just do it. All right. Yep. We might as well. The time is now. But all right. Appreciate all of you guys that tuned in. Thanks to the live chat for keeping it popping. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. But for now, folks, have a good rest of your Victory Monday. For me, from Weston, peace.